Story 1. I had a woodworking accident just over 2 years ago. It wasn't huge. I lost my left index finger, but it kind of punched me in the gut. It makes you realize you aren't invincible. Story 2. I was 23 in October 2011. I got fired from my store manager position at GameStop on May 2nd, 2011, and then my son was born on May 15th, 2011. To a girl I got pregnant 3 months into the relationship. My friends I rented a house with didn't want to live with a kid, so they all agreed to end the lease and I had to move back home with my dad, girlfriend, and new baby in tow. With no degree and severely overestimating how impressive being a retail general manager is, I had taken a job working swing shift at a bindery, putting inserts into magazines, and had completely shut down emotionally, going through the motions. One night around 2 a.m., I got really angry at myself and overwhelmed with despair on my son's behalf. I looked at him sleeping in his ratty pack and play and thought of his Christmases, his birthdays, his field trips, a collection of future memories where I would disappoint him and he'd never have the life he would deserve because of his piece of a poor father who just couldn't do anything right. It wasn't fair to him. Something clicked, and I was determined to do something. I had a few customers who had recommended I apply for a local insurance company that had a call center in the area. I applied for several positions they had open and put my all into my resume and cover letter and went to bed, feeling like this would be a turning point. I got a job in sales, got a shabby apartment, then a nice one, got a job in claims, and bought a house. 10 years later, I'm still with the woman I got pregnant 3 months into dating and honestly cannot believe how lucky I am. My kids, including a girl who came in 2012, are spoiled, and while we aren't wealthy, we aren't living in my bedroom at my dad's house, and I'd say we're solidly lower middle class. My son completely changed our lives that night, and whenever I get discouraged, I look at him and remember that even someone like me can get stuff done when the chips are down, and we've managed to survive every potentially derailing disaster since. Story 3. Mine isn't as intense as some of these other stories, but here it goes. I played guitar for the last 5 years, and it has become one of my biggest passions. 6 weeks ago, I lost my footing while climbing a platform, and I'm fairly certain I have permanent tendon damage in my left hand. It didn't sink in what exactly had happened until I was in my car after the doctor's appointment. I would now spend more of my life with this faulty left hand than when it was fine. This is now the rest of my one life. Passion's gone. Zero activity in my life because I'm afraid of everything, and slightly more useless than before. I miss the ignorance. Edit. I always forget how supportive the people on this site can be. Thank you, everyone. A lot of people recommend learning lefty, enough so that I will give it a try. The knowledge is there. I just need to get my hands to catch up. Thank you all again. Story 4. A dear friend got cancer. Out of the blue and bad. We were 29 and both just hitting our strides in life and work. She was dead 18 months later. It absolutely rocked me to my core how fragile life is. Story 5. When I held the hand of a dying woman involved in a double tractor-trailer semi versus a Ford Focus collision, she was missing the back of her head. She was my age and had 2 twin girls. I held her as she took her last breath, begging her to open her eyes. That's when I realized I had lived through an ectopic pregnancy in 2011 that caused me to die twice and a septic gallbladder in 2013 to be there for this woman. That's when my life began. Story 6. When I lost my wife and daughter, the first few months are hard to remember. However, I do remember when I began to heal. It was a long road, but once I set my sights on going back to school to become a lawyer, I truly began to heal. This Friday, I will be sworn in as an attorney. Story 7. Last week, a coworker had a gigantic heart attack and instantly died right there in the cafeteria. I didn't know him, so while it was a horrible thing to witness, I'll eventually get over it. What shook me more was the fact he was only in his early 20s, just about younger than me, and wasn't much more overweight than I am. Seeing firsthand how suddenly all my bad decisions can just erase me from existence, and the fact I've had a couple of small chest pains and ignored them in the past, I threw out everything remotely sugary the instant I got home. Edit. Thanks to those who have recommended seeing a doctor, I had already gotten a general checkup appointment just to be safe. Story 8. January 13th, 2018. I was in Honolulu, Hawaii, during the false alarm ballistic missile strike. I called my parents to say goodbye and waited for the impact in the basement of our hotel with my fiancée. It took way too long for them to correct the mistake and let people know it was a false alarm. We were visibly shaken all day, and upon returning, I decided then that I would request 3 months off work for my honeymoon instead of 2 weeks. Traveled the world and remembered how important family is compared to work. I still need to remind myself about it every so often, though, because the grind gets to you. Story 9. When I graduated high school and realized I had no skills, no interesting hobbies, nothing interesting about myself, it was no wonder I struggled so much with dating. I spent the last few years changing that. Story 10. It was a really low point in my life. I didn't think things could get worse. So many things were going wrong and so many bad choices were being made. I was at a point where ending it all was the only option I could see. Upon cutting into my wrist, everything was clear. It could be worse, and it will be, but I don't want to die. 56 internal stitches, 15 external, and I'm still here. Things did get worse, but then they got amazing. As much as I'm nowhere near as dark as this point in my life, I've been going 10 rounds in the ring with life over the last few months. All the messages and support you have all sent have really lifted me. Thank you. Story 11. 2 years ago last month, I used methamphetamine for the last time. Wow, this gained a lot of attention. I will take the time to reply to everyone individually later, but I just want to say thank you to everyone for the kind words and encouragement. I would also like to say that I have a medical marijuana card, so I do not consider myself sober. I am definitely still in recovery, specifically from amphetamines and alcohol. Marijuana and Zoloft are the only drugs I will ever put in my body again. If you or someone you know is in the situation I was in 2 years ago, please message me if you want to talk. I am in the process of becoming a substance abuse specialist. This is my passion. Story 12. So 1 week after being told I have prostate cancer at 47, I decided I needed to get fitter and healthier, but honestly, my heart wasn't in it and I was on the verge of depression. It's 5:40 a.m. and I am idly drinking tea before going to the gym, but I am 50-50 about going back to bed and pretty much giving up on life. Scrolling down Facebook, I see the quote, "A man has 2 lives, one before he realizes he is mortal and one after." I stared at it like it was a revelation. Something I can't describe lifted in me. I drained my tea and went to the gym. Almost exactly 1 year later, I am fit. I have lost 15 kilograms with another 13 to go. 6 mornings a week, I row a 10K on a Concept 2 rowing machine and go to the gym, doing weights once a week. My last scan showed the cancer hasn't changed one bit in a year and now will be monitored for 2 years to see if it's stable. If I do need to have it removed, I am in the best shape for a successful operation. It's no exaggeration to say this quote changed my life. Update, wow. Just wow. I never expected this response. Thank you so much. I have tried to reply to everybody who asked a question. Thank you for the gold and silver, and thank you for the support. It means a great deal to an old person like me. Also, I will never type dong instead of doing ever again. Oh my God. Story 13. I suppose when I turned 20. Prior to that, I had never thought past that age. I spent a long time stuck in a now what phase, trying not to have an existential crisis. Eventually, I went to college, got a degree, and now work in the field I studied for. I battled depression and won, and found some of the things I was looking for in life. I'm starting to figure out what I want from life and what it's going to take to get there. So, I guess I started my second life when I got out of my age 20 funk. Story 14. I got psychological help. I used to think that life just sucked for everyone and the trick was to fake your way through it. That faking was what I thought other people's happiness was. From puberty to after my 40th, I lived where every moment of happiness was weighed down by an ever-present depression and lack of self-esteem. I know this is small compared to what most people go through in life, and that's exactly the mentality that kept me from getting help. It took a bit, but after talking with a counselor once a week for a few months, being referred to a psychiatrist with an initial diagnosis, and working with my psychiatrist to find medicines that work, I finally feel what I can only assume is normal. I wake up most days with an underlying happiness that's never been there before. Moments with my kids are not darkened by thoughts that I don't deserve them or that they wouldn't love me if they knew me. Don't be like me. Even if your mountain seems small compared to your view of the mountain others are climbing, that doesn't mean you couldn't use some help finding the right path. To quote an old man from my childhood, it's dangerous out there. I truly hope that whatever type of help will lead to a better life for you, that you all get a chance to get it. Life can get better. Baby steps. I'm sailing. Story 15. When I quit my job 5 years ago and biked across the country, the moment I finished, I realized that I was forever going to look at life differently. I had been working an absolutely horrendous job, high stress, low pay, terrible hours, all because I needed the experience it gave me for my career. At some point, I realized I don't have to be this miserable. I quit in a fit of rage, bought a bicycle, and cycled across the continental United States for 2 months. I found my center and my confidence and started treating myself better. I met some of the most interesting, crazy, and honorable people along the way. It was the best decision I ever made, and I still treat myself with the respect I feel I deserve. Real quick edit to share a few more details, since many are interested. This is not the complete blog, because I just didn't care to keep it up after a while. It does, however, share my preparation and first few weeks on the road. I can't remember if my blog covered the financial side of it, but over the course of just under a year, I had saved up about $5,000 to pull off the trip. No significant other or pets at the time. I rented a room out of my dad's place during the awful job, so the cost of living was reasonable and not totally crazy. I was a crisis counselor, so while I say in the original comment that the pay was terrible, that is relative. I wasn't making minimum wage, but what I was doing for the job didn't equal the pay I got in return. Above all, I was resourceful as anything during the trip. I went to cities where I knew people. I told my story to a lot of folks. Lots of strangers along the way gave me a gift card or a $10 bill or anything to help me along. Ever flirt with a motel desk clerk for a free room? Takes a lot of creativity to pull it off at low cost, but it was worth every challenge. Story 16. A few months ago, my mother fell down the stairs at 2 in the morning. We were home alone, and she wasn't responding. I called the emergency number, and an ambulance came. She's fine now, but the thought of losing her shook me so much that I decided to turn my life around. I only have one life and need to do as much as possible with it. I came out as bisexual, started eating healthier, and focused on school a lot more. Life has been going a lot better since then. Story 17. When one of my best friends and his sister were murdered by his dad at 16, it made me realize how precious life is and that I should always be grateful for what I have. It also wrecked my best friend's life forever, and he will never be the same. Story 18. I had a conversation with my dad about winning the lottery. He asked me if I would go to film school if money wasn't an issue. I, of course, answered affirmatively. He told me to go for it. So I did. Here I am in my first semester as a film student, living the life I want to. Life is good right now. I'm not making compromises. Story 19. On September 18th, my brother-in-law was walking to work. He was hit by a car while crossing the road. We agonized over what was happening while he was in the hospital for 2 weeks, not sure if he would wake up again. We finally decided as a family that, given the brain damage, he would not live a quality life and would have to remove life support. He was an organ donor, so there is some consolation that he may have saved others' lives. But it was only last week that we watched him pass. I had no idea the body becomes so waxen. He was only 25, the baby brother, our third musketeer. It hurts so much. I think this is my defining moment, but if it doesn't hurt so much, I don't know how to use this to live a more fulfilling life. It just hurts. Story 20. Got a scary diagnosis. Had a fear that I would never be anything more than I was at that moment. A victim who never really lived. So I cut abusive narcissistic family out of my life, got out of an unhappy marriage, lost a bunch of weight, and started working towards a career I wanted. I'm not perfect, but my life is good now and my body is mostly cooperating. I honestly can't believe who I used to be. Story 21. Meeting the woman who would become my wife. I had been in numerous poor relationships, mostly because I was childish, lazy, and selfish, and was thoroughly unemployed with only a general educational development certificate to my name. I had been taking classes at our local community college, but had no specific goal. I was used to ex-girlfriends telling me to get a job and grow up, but this woman was different. She pushed me, but in a loving way. She challenged me to be my best. We got married right after I got my master's degree. Absolutely none of what I have achieved would have happened without her, and I am thankful and grateful for this second life. We have been together for 7 years, almost 8. It's a lot of give and take, but we also just fit together. For example, I love cooking and she loves cleaning. A lot of the way that she pushed me was just to encourage me. Instead of saying, "I don't know if you'll be able to do it," or "That's not a good idea, I don't think you should do it," she would say, "Do it. I'll support you no matter the outcome." She celebrated with me when I succeeded and held me when I failed. We have always supported each other's happiness but kept it realistic. When I was stressed out about graduate school, she would tell me to take a day for myself and relax or go fishing. I hope this helps. I don't know how else to explain it.